7 days after the death of Iran's supreme leader, the conflict between Iran, Israel, and the United States is no longer a shadow war. Missiles are flying, cities are under attack, and global energy routes are collapsing. The question now is no longer if the war will escalate, but how far it will go. The 7th day of open conflict in the Middle East has revealed a reality that analysts had feared for years. A direct confrontation between Iran and the alliance of Israel and the United States. What began as covert operations, proxy battles, and cyber warfare has rapidly escalated into open military exchanges involving missiles, drones, naval attacks, and large-scale airstrikes. The turning point of this crisis was the death of Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. In a joint strike attributed to Israel and the United States at the end of February 2026, the assassination shocked the Iranian political and military establishment. Within hours, officials in Tehran declared that the attack was an act of war that would trigger a long and painful response. For Iran, the death of its supreme leader was not only a political loss, but also a symbolic strike against the heart of the Islamic Republic. The leadership of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps quickly mobilized its strategic forces, placing missile units and drone commands on high alert. Iranian commanders announced that the country had prepared new generations of missiles capable of reaching strategic targets across the region. These warnings soon turned into reality. Missile sirens began echoing across Israeli cities as Iran launched waves of ballistic missiles and long-range drones toward Tel Aviv and other military targets. Israeli air defense systems, including multiple interceptor layers, were activated to counter the incoming attacks. Explosions were reported in several areas as interceptors destroyed missiles mid-air. At the same time, Iran broadened its retaliation by targeting American military assets in the Persian Gulf. Bases used by its forces in the region suddenly became potential targets for Iranian missile strikes and drone swarms. Iranian commanders warned that any American facility involved in attacks against Iran would be considered a legitimate military objective. The naval dimension of the conflict quickly intensified as well. Iran accused the United States of sinking one of its warships using torpedoes in the Gulf region. In response, Iranian naval commanders vowed retaliation against American fleets and warned commercial shipping that the region was no longer safe. One of the most dramatic consequences of this escalation was the disruption of global shipping routes through the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is one of the most critical energy corridors in the world, with roughly a fifth of global oil supplies passing through it every day. As tensions exploded into open warfare, commercial vessels began avoiding the area due to fears of missile strikes, naval mines, or drone attacks. The closure of the strait immediately sent shockwaves through the global economy. Oil prices surged as traders anticipated supply shortages, while shipping companies scrambled to reroute tankers around longer and more expensive routes. While Iran was launching retaliatory strikes, Israel initiated its own massive military response. Israeli warplanes carried out large-scale air raids targeting strategic locations in Tehran, Iran's capital, according to military sources. The attacks focused on military command centers, missile facilities, and key infrastructure linked to Iran's defense network. Several reports also indicated that sites connected to Iran's nuclear program were targeted during the strikes. Israeli officials did not confirm the details but emphasized that their objective was to weaken Iran's ability to wage long-term war. At the same time, Israeli forces expanded operations beyond Iran's borders. Airstrikes were reported in the southern suburbs of Beirut, particularly in the district of Dahia. The area has long been considered a strategic stronghold of Hezbollah, a powerful Lebanese militia backed by Iran. For Israel, the involvement of Hezbollah represents a major strategic threat. The group possesses tens of thousands of rockets and missiles, capable of striking deep inside Israeli territory. By striking positions in Beirut, Israel appears to be attempting to prevent Hezbollah from fully entering the conflict. However, the situation is far from contained. As the war intensified, neighboring countries began reporting unusual military activity across their airspace. In Azerbaijan, officials claimed that drones believed to originate from Iran had crossed into their territory. Although the exact targets were unclear, the incident demonstrated how easily the conflict could spill beyond the immediate battlefield. Countries in the Gulf region also found themselves caught in the middle of the escalating confrontation. Air defense systems in United Arab Emirates and Qatar reportedly intercepted several missiles passing through regional airspace. These interceptions were not necessarily directed at those countries, but were part of the wider missile exchanges between Iran and its adversaries. Even so, the presence of missiles flying across multiple national borders highlighted the danger of a broader regional war. The impact of the conflict has also been felt in global transportation networks. Major aviation hubs such as Dubai and Abu Dhabi experienced significant disruptions to flight schedules as airlines avoided flying through dangerous airspace. Many international routes connecting Europe, Asia, and Africa had to be rerouted, causing delays and increased costs for airlines and passengers alike. The risk to civilian aviation has become a major concern as military operations intensify across the region. Back in Iran, military leaders continued to signal that the country was preparing for a prolonged war. Officials stated that the Islamic Republic had spent years building a network of missile bases, done underground facilities, and drone launch systems designed specifically to survive sustained attacks. Iranian strategists believe that their missile arsenal gives them a powerful, asymmetric advantage. Even if their air force cannot match the technological superiority of Israel or the United States, Iran's ability to launch large numbers of missiles could overwhelm defensive systems over time. This strategy appears to focus on attrition, forcing the opposing side to expend enormous resources defending against repeated attacks. Meanwhile, the United States has begun reinforcing its military presence across the Middle East. Additional naval vessels, air defense systems, and fighter aircraft have been deployed to protect American bases in allied countries. U.S. officials insist that their goal is to deter further escalation while protecting American personnel in the region. However, Iran has warned that any new American military deployment will only widen the conflict. The possibility of a multi-front war is now one of the greatest fears among international observers. If Hezbollah launches its full arsenal from Lebanon, while Iranian forces continue missile strikes and other regional militias become involved, Israel could face simultaneous threats from several directions. At the same time, American bases in Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf could become targets for additional attacks. Such a scenario would transform the current confrontation into one of the largest wars the Middle East has seen in decades. Diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the crisis have so far struggled to gain momentum. Several international powers have called for an immediate ceasefire and emergency negotiations. However, with casualties rising and political pressure mounting on all sides, neither Iran nor Israel appears willing to step back. For Iran, retaliation is seen as a matter of national pride and political survival. For Israel, neutralizing Iran's military capabilities is considered essential for long-term security. As a result, the conflict continues to intensify with each passing day. Military analysts warn that the coming weeks could determine whether the war remains a regional conflict or evolves into a much larger international crisis. If global energy supplies remain disrupted and additional countries become involved, the economic and geopolitical consequences could be felt far beyond the Middle East. For now, the world is watching a rapidly unfolding confrontation where every missile launch, every airstrike, and every naval clash carries the potential to trigger an even greater escalation. 7 days into the war, the Middle East stands at a dangerous crossroads, and the next move by Iran, Israel, or the United States could determine whether this conflict remains contained or becomes the spark that ignites a much larger global crisis.